Well, hello and welcome back to Momentous Live. This time, it's episode 160. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Tasia Custodi.
I'm Gray Williams.
I'm Jerome Matthew.
And you can find out about us here at www.momentous.tv, where you can find our videos, our podcast episodes, links to all our socials, and links to our various team members as well. And it's been a minute, folks. We've adjusting our schedule for the foreseeable future to be more event specific. Every single team member here has lots of stuff going on, including our much missed Will Silver. He was a late cancellation, unfortunately, today, but we look forward to having him back for our next episode. So, yeah, let's get into it. I don't want the giant me. We just want, there we go. Fee fi, indeed. There was just a little bit of news happening in the last couple of days, but let's start with a wee bit of follow-up first. Tasia, I'm not sure if you were here for this one, but Gray, I know you were for sure. Was it a year or two ago we were talking about Spotify's car thing? Oh yeah, 2022.
Yep.
The car thing. And we all thought that. So this was a device as a dashboard accessory that was specifically for Spotify. And we all know the trend nowadays is to have specific devices as opposed to devices that can do tons of things, right? No, rather the opposite. So instead of having CarPlay or Android Auto or some third-party thing that can bring all that stuff into it, let's just have one thing for Spotify. And I think, Gray, do you recall what our prediction was? It was going to be for the fate of this Spotify-specific car thing.
I'm gonna throw the dice on this one and say that it was going to crater in a Google-esque cancellation.
Hey.
Correct me if that is anywhere incorrect.
Not sure why you had to throw Google under the bus.
I think we know why we need to throw Google under the bus.
Yeah, we'll get to who's copying who in a little bit.
So the dashboard accessory went into and out of production in 2022. Apparently will be bricked by the end of this year. Now, this story is from a couple of weeks ago, and at the time, we heard that there was no offer of any kind of refunds or anything from the company for something that was supported for so long. To be fair, it was a cheap device. I think it was like $99. $90.
You got it on sale.
Yeah, $90 US. It was. It's been around for 3 years, but now it's just gone. And this is a recurring issue we've talked about over and over again. When you have these devices that have server-side requirements, and they decide to be end of life, and there's no recourse for people afterwards. They just get bricked because they turn off the servers or whatever. And I know, Gray, you've got some specific thoughts on what companies should do if they decide to end of life products like this, like we've seen with Nintendo shutting things down in the past, and other companies that have created these specialty devices that have web operations. What's the recourse there?
What companies should do when they decide to end of life a piece of hardware like this, that costs, some users $100, some users $29, provided a very specific, unique service that seemed to be much enamored from the end users. They should kill themselves. This is raw, unadulterated cow feces. It's a functional little device. I don't know how much the API costs them to run, but I'm going to tell you this much. It's not how much it costs to remediate all of this e-waste. This is honestly, from the Joe Flo Bogan experience thing to the podcast payola thing, I hate Spotify now. This was the straw. What they should do is they should open it up. But they said specifically...
That's what we're getting at.
They said specifically that they don't want to open it up.
Perfect.
It's freaking Martin Sheen in Wall Street.
We'll save some of your rage because we've got another brick as well. Oral-B is bricking their Alexa toothbrushes from 2022, and now is encouraging people to pick up their $400 AI toothbrush.
This is a self-solving problem if we take all of these toothbrushes and stick them exactly where Oral-B doesn't want you to put them.
I will not probe further on that line of questioning.
Thank you.
But again, these sorts of issues just speak to the larger question, like, and also customer trust. I mean, we've alluded to Google and how many experiments they've run, and some have gone for years and years. And there's the Google graveyard, the killedbygoogle.com, where we can see. I mean, that's a large company with a lot of stuff going on, and we've got these other smaller projects by smaller companies. But if you, it's just the cautionary tale there. If you buy something that requires an app or requires a web service or something like that, just think twice if you're not confident that the company is going to open source things when they decide to, there's no business case to maintain this product going forward.
Or because, like, again, what does an Alexa toothbrush do? Right?
Exactly.
Alexa, turn on my toothbrush. Okay.
Turn on my wife's toothbrush by itself.
Well, hang on.
Well played. I guess that's why they rented it. But so here's the thing. Or as a society, or perhaps as a nation here in Canada, and our friends down in the United States, dear God, I hope that other one doesn't get elected. Maybe we have some prohibitions against creating products that depend on these sorts of technologies. You can't have a server that can have the plug pulled. In fintech, it's called a rug pull. This is a plug pull. Tired of it.
Gotcha. Well, to be fair, the original toothbrush was only $230.
What?
So that's expensive e-waste, and now you can upgrade to the $400 one.
Did Alexa come to your house to floss for you?
Exactly.
Did it come up with excuses you could give your dentist for why you didn't floss?
Jerome, can you think of any products, tech products that you've bought over the years that required an app or some kind of web service? And feel free to jump in here too, Tej, if anything comes to mind, that after a couple of years, all of a sudden, oh, whoopsie doopsie, we're not going to support this anymore, and it's become functionally useless for you?
I can't think of something specific off the top of my head, but it is annoying when you have a product that suddenly, when you update your operating systems and suddenly the app doesn't work or there's no update and you can't use the product anymore. I mean, that's just annoying. And I guess, especially if it's from a big company who can afford to keep updating their software and making it, work with hardware that has a large user base. So yeah.
I hate to say this. This is one reason why I'm sometimes a little wary of Kickstarter, like other crowdfunded type things.
Yeah.
There was one device, I can't remember what it was called. It was an attachment for the iPhone 4 era of iPhones, and it was this thing that you clicked onto the side, plugged it into the jack on the side, and it gave you a handle and a shutter button to be able to use your iPhone really ergonomically as a camera. But it required a freaking app. And then one or two OS software updates later, the company wasn't updating them because they were a small company. I think it was a crowd-funded thing, and they just didn't update it for the latest OS, and so it became basically useless after that.
Yeah, in my case, the worst situation, if I think back a little bit, where that was the case, where is you have a huge, expensive professional audio device like a mixer that was a control surface for your software in the computer, and it basically was a brick once you updated the software because they didn't keep updating the control surface. And smart companies use the Apple audio system so that that's not an issue, and whenever you update, it's using the Apple audio engine, a software engine to run it. But some devices couldn't, or they felt they should have their own app, and then it basically is worthless when you decide to update one day or have to update because you can no longer use it. And there's a number of products in the professional audio world like that are really expensive and essentially useless when that happens. So I don't know what I did with some of those, but they're kind of just doorstops,
Phenomenal doorstops. Beautiful. High and well crafted.
and that's and that's the kind of thing that makes people wary of third-party stuff, and trying to stick to first-party stuff from the operating system vendor like an Apple or Microsoft. But when you do that, sometimes you're limiting yourself to a certain set of features and not getting the latest cutting-edge stuff until the other the big folks integrate it. Tasia, have you ever been burned before with a device purchase or other sort of hardware or software purchase that just only after after not that much use the support ended, and then you end up with something useless?
Well, Chromecast comes to mind, but I wasn't really burned by it because
Right.
the technology just advanced and we all cast from our phones now, regardless of whether you're Android or iOS. So
Right.
I wasn't really so much as burned by it
Mm-hmm.
as, oh, what do I do with this now?
Oh, like the actual plug-in for the TV, like the little
Yes.
device,
Remember
and
those?
because smart TVs are tending to support that natively now. Is your point?
Yes,
Gotcha.
or
I
feel
now
like you could turn that
we,
into,
we
like,
can
a-
cast from apps on our phone now, which before
Right.
Chromecast, that really wasn't a thing.
Gotcha.
So the physical device, I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know what I do with you, but I still have it because I feel like I like to keep some relics.
That's exactly it. Turn it into a lapel pin so you can remember the fallen.
Right?
No, but if it would work on a non-smart older TV,
Yep.
then it has a purpose, right? And
As long as it still works, yeah.
it has resale value, for people who don't have a smart TV. Maybe
$5
We actually
on
did
Facebook
give
Marketplace.
one. We gave one to my father-in-law for one of their TVs that's not smart. I think it's still working, but the problem is Google's no longer like updating that software. So at some point, I don't know when, it's just not going to work.
And earlier this week, Jeff Geerling turned a Raspberry Pi into an Apple TV-esque device, fully open source. So
There you go. But yeah, the net effect of all this kind of stuff is the whole e-waste issue, whether it's something that has just become obsolete because of other technology advancing or become obsolete because its creators are no longer supporting it. So yeah, it's just one of those things that makes us think twice before buying stuff.
we could balance out, though, right? Because the anger at e-waste, we could harvest the energy from nerd rage about it and fire a boiler.
Well,
least
exactly. I
in
mean,
this
especially
room.
all that angry typing. If you had some sort of kinetic energy capture
Piezoelectric?
devices,
Yeah.
we should. Oh, there's a Kickstarter idea for you. Like
We could call the
keyboards
keyboard
and
the Rage
capture-
Quit.
Exactly.
Yes, I love it.
So moving on from past e-waste to future e-waste, there's a new device called the Daylight DC1, a $729 attempt to build a calmer computer. And when you look at this thing, it looks strikingly like an Amazon Kindle e-reader, but
Nice.
it's not e-paper. It's got its own proprietary technology called live paper screen.
Ooh.
It's smoother and more responsive, like a traditional LCD. And in their advertising, they are really pitting it up against, past e-paper and how slow and laggy it is, and B, against things like iPads, which are so bright, filled with blue light, and always screaming for your attention. So there is a pen accessory. There is a keyboard for this as well. It has 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage. It's got traditional things like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but it's all for a calmer, more computing experience. And I look at this like the idea is wonderful, and I think a lot of us sort of tech folks can get entranced by things like this because I got to try to simplify and disconnect and all this kind of stuff. And like how many of us are actually going to use that that dedicated writing device or drawing device or what have you when we have these other devices that do so much already.
Well, I think isn't this more kind of for people who aren't techies like us, and they just need something to do basic certain functions and.
Is this it?
I would hope, but it doesn't seem like that's what their marketing is going for, quite honestly. When you go onto their website, it's the computer de-invented. It's designed for deep focus and well-being.
You gotta be kidding me.
I mean, it's lovely. It's like artisanal. I mean, just look at this.
It's the farmer's market computer. Amazing.
There you go. There's your market.
I admire the effort they put in. I wanted to say hubris, but it's like clearly they're sincere. They're sincere about this. It's just, yeah.
How
I
many
don't
people
know.
actually in this world get to go and sit in a park on a bench and just sketch away on any kind of device? Like, how big is this market?
Artists, yeah.
And is the I don't know, complexity of the computer the thing that's getting in the way of them doing what they want to do? And is this $700 device the answer?
I
Nope.
get that. Now, as Tasia, as someone who is managing, juggling so many projects at once with your YouTube channel and various podcasts and other projects, and all our devices are indeed screaming for our attention, what do you do to try to focus? Have you ever been tempted by some of these single-purpose devices? Like, how do you
The color of the woman's face with the iPad.
Oh yeah, it's all warm, less blue light, right? It's very warm.
That's great.
What are your strategies, Tasia?
I have never been tempted. I file this under the just because you can doesn't mean you should. In terms of should we have invented this product?
The soon to become an Alexa toothbrush brick.
Exactly.
No.
But I mean, I get the impulse. Like, we all are so distracted, and it's hard to get deep work done. And I find this, like, I know, well, I mean, we've talked about...
Is it e-paper screen away from difficult? Like, is it...
Right.
Right.
I mean,
There's a growing percentage of the population that is feeling the scientifically proven negative effects of all the tech and gear in their life, and
Is it
and,
tech
and
and
the
gear, or is it what
inability.
the tech and gear brings?
It's
Because
really about
it's the X of the CNN that's usually the one that's getting me down there.
yeah, no, it's about how we're using the gear more than the gear itself, though. That's the thing. And this is saying, hey, it's the gear that's the problem.
Okay.
Yes, but then here's another piece of tech.
exactly. We're going to solve your tech problem with more tech. But look,
Yeah.
it's a warm glow, and it's not going to like get your neurons firing and make it hard for you to sleep or
The
something.
iPad has the yellow light thing. What is it called?
There's night shift.
Night shift, yeah.
You know what also has a nice orange glow? Burning down the place that's giving you the stress, and I think at this point it's these guys.
Or salt lamps are also good.
Salt lamps is a far more legal option. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, well, let's move on to another sort of scaling things down a little bit. Look at this new iPod-like device. It's like, is these guys reinventing the iPod? And this little guy is called the Tiny Pod. It's like we some of us have that nostalgia for the click wheel device, and it's been 17 years since the iPhone's been around, and the iPods became much more irrelevant as time went on, and the iPod Touch, the last iPad, was eventually discontinued several years ago. But we're like 23 years since the original iPod, if you can believe it. Well, now, if you want to recapture some of that old iPod goodness, there's this thing called the Tiny Pod, which looks like, is this a bespoke device? Well, actually, no. This is a case for your Apple Watch, of all things.
That's brilliant.
You just stick it in there, and I don't know.
Why?
Like, exactly.
Do you know
Everybody
why?
just stop. I've had enough.
Tasha's already burned out.
It's
know
your
why?
phone away from phone.
This is why, Tasia. This is why. For those who are listening to the
No.
audio version, I've got 3 Apple Watches within a 6-inch distance here.
Well,
You have
there
a
you go. You're the
problem.
market. For this.
I'm Lewis
something
Black
to put
angry
in.
and everything right now. So
So I'll take it here. No one's tempted by.
I am now.
An
I-
iPod like Apple
I saw
Watch
this. I
case.
wanted to hate it, and I'm like, wait, what? I can put my
And-
okay. Does it work
and
on
so-
an Apple Watch Gen 0?
Yeah,
it would.
unfortunately, mine died, and the
at
battery
this
expanded
one.
on it, and it got liquid inside, and it just died.
This one is sitting here doing nothing, and I hate it.
No, this is how you pass on your old Apple
Yeah.
Watch to your kids or something.
Right. Well,
Children, here, listen to
website
music.
doesn't. Their website doesn't have a whole lot of anything going on at the moment, except I did add myself to the email list, so we'll see when anything actually happens. So, and I asked for a media review unit, which we'll never get, but we'll see if anyone.
That
actually
attitude,
ever
Tiny Pod. If
gets
you're
it.
listening, and you don't send a review right now, you are cursed.
You're missing out.
I went to Tiny Pod, and it's an eco-friendly, luxurious pod, so I clearly went to the wrong website.
All right, let's move on to our big news this week. Monday, Apple hosted their WWDC, Worldwide Developer Conference 2024 keynote, later that afternoon was followed by the State of the Nation, as usual, which is more developer-centric. The keynote is really geared for the media and the public as well. And there are developer sessions happening all week long. So I thought we would sort of step through some of the major points of the announcements. There are some great articles on all your favorite blogs out there. We saw a fun video at the beginning with some of the Apple crew, led by Air Force One, Craig Federici, and they were all jumping out of an airplane. And what's that?
The helmet was great.
Oh yeah,
and the shape of his hair.
Yeah, the hair helmet, and that's our feature image, our thumbnail this week is, and it grumpy old Phil Schiller, piloting the plane, saying he's getting too old for this stuff. And you may have noticed there was a shot of him queuing up, "Kickstart My Heart" by Motley Crue on the old, I think it was a first generation iPod. Apparently, I think that may have been a callback to the click wheel design may have been his idea. That's what I've been hearing some scuttlebutt about. So that could have been a little callback.
And it'd be my ass.
Exactly. So, so we'll just step through some of the announcements. They basically did a cursory run through the various operating systems. There was a number of live blogs out there. Of course, they wanted to start with a little Apple TV Plus news, talking about the highest rated programs. It's now the premier service. They've got all sorts of awards nominations. They talked a little bit about Vision OS, talking about some of their additional features that they are slow rolling. We'll talk about one of them a little bit later on, a Marvel collaboration, but they showed off some stuff from the NBA. And the biggest news, Vision OS 2 is coming out. And then also they'll be selling the Apple Vision Pro in July 28th, China, Japan, and Singapore. And then later in July in other countries, including Canada, finally. They talked about some Canon cameras with spatial vision lenses, the dual lenses, which reminds me, remember, it was like 2010, 2011, Panasonic and others were selling cameras with like 3D lenses, like the dual lenses, when everyone was trying to make 3D TV a thing. And it never really caught on. And a lot of us called that back at the time as well. So Gray, as our official Vision OS correspondent, is the one person who's been able to actually play with this a little bit. Any comments from the very light Vision OS and Apple Vision Pro announcements, including a bit with Blackmagic workflows and the like?
So here's the thing. This is the Vision OS 3GS moment, right? They have a new product. They have a new way of interacting with said product. They have a new App Store-ish thing. They don't have a whole ton of apps yet. For the people for whom this is doing a thing, it's great. For the vast majority of people, it does not do a thing for them yet. So it's kind of boring. And it's
a lot of developer stuff, yeah.
It's weird that we're going to look back on this when things like spatial computing are more accepted into our lives. And I'm going to look back at myself and say, it's kind of boring. Yeah, and that seems really tone deaf now that we have ocular implants that have AR. But these are the steps, right? This is the Sinclair, this is the Osborne, these are the moments that have to happen. It's not the sexiest thing in the world, although because it's Apple, it kind of is a little sexy. It's that sexy where you're like, this is somebody else's fetish.
One of the other features they talked up was retrofitting and adapting your old photographs to be more spatial and 3D-esque by all their algorithms and machine learning magic and whatnot. So you have some content. Apparently there are 4,000 apps or so that have been developed. Oh, yeah. I mean, who knows what they are?
The fart apps there's a whole category. Exactly. Here's the thing. The Photos thing is great. It's not a $3,000 killer app. But what it is when the price on this does come down and there are more apps available. This is just another finger on the scale to help weigh this in the direction of people who want to purchase it. Getting that in place now is a good choice.
So a couple other quick things. We got AirPlay and SharePlay support, mouse support, Mac virtual display enhancements. You can have like a gigantic screen in front of you to look like one of those LG monitor purchasers.
Like Johnny
So yeah,
Mnemonic.
it's baby steps. Yeah, exactly. So moving on to iOS 18. There is a lot of window dressing, the ability to customize icon layouts. We're not stuck to the order. We can move things arbitrarily on the screen, still snapping to grid, able to change the look of icons with different color schemes, having them automatically match the color scheme of our wallpaper, for example, some enhancements to Control Center. Tasia, you were watching pretty carefully with some of the iOS stuff. Any highlights that come to your attention? There's enhancements to messaging and all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the messages ones are the ones I think I'm most looking forward to. So some of the things here, like you mentioned doing the apps and stuff like that. And to me, I actually am not, a lot of people online are super stoked about like the new home screen stuff. And I'm not, because I feel like I'm always using the search to find my apps anyway. And I'm very much like to keep my apps super organized and in line, and moving them to like the bottom or to the left or right to like see my wallpaper is not really what I'm going for. And then changing the colors in certain modes for like all the apps to match and like say be yellow or blue. And I'm like, but I like to be able to just distinguish between my apps. And so like if you make them all the same color, it's like, oh God. So I'm not as stoked about that stuff, but some of the message stuff, can we just talk about them calling this tapback? Did everybody know that emoji reactions and message reactions were actually called tapbacks? Am I the only one who didn't know it was called that?
I think maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Like I've always called
That's
them emoji or message reactions because that's what they are.
okay.
And by the way, it's a double tap or a long press. So it doesn't even make sense. But anyway,
I'm going to give you that point. That is a valid point.
thank you.
If
But
they're
yeah,
calling
Double tap action a
reactions-
little much. It also sounds like something that the police would do. So
it's a reaction.
If they're
You're
changing
reacting-
reactions to say to be called tapbacks, then I'm with you. I think that's ridiculous. You can't change the name. It's called reactions.
No, I think it's been
It was launched as
tapbacks
tapback.
all along.
See, this is what
honestly.
I'm saying though, is
Yeah.
I've always referred to it as reactions because that's what it is. It's
but you're tapping
reacting
to get back to someone.
to a
It's,
message.
it's like when Doc Brown double tapped the DeLorean.
This is gonna be like, what's that?
I think you're
The Mandela effect.
maybe
Where I remember this story.
Maybe because you straddle in like the Google Android ecosystem as well.
Okay,
Maybe
can we
there's
talk
some of
about
there.
that for a second? Because this edition of iOS is so much Android catch-up, it should have a food name.
I can't believe they didn't partner with Google with all the stuff they're copying.
This is
But anyway,
this is iOS 18 catch-up is what it is.
which is like, it's about time. But yeah, I like, so with the tap backs, if that's what we have to call it, you're going to have like all the emoji now, and they change the look of the emoji that you're going to be able to use to react to messages. So that's exciting. But they're also doing things like message effects and
Additional
formatting.
ones, yeah.
So now like it'll auto suggest certain effects that you can send like just for one word, like in your message
Bounce.
if you want.
Because they're doing
if
that
you
with
want it to bounce.
reactions.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
There it is.
So
There it is.
Hey, nicely done.
Can we, so just one thing here. The emoji thing is crucial because the ha-ha reaction is the single worst thing on the planet
what?
after the thumbs up. No one
always
has ever
ha-ha.
laughed ha-ha.
That's
Ha-ha.
You sound
literally
like the
the
Joker
only
when you
way.
ha-ha.
Oh, I'm sorry. And you LOL every time you're writing LOL.
I
You're not.
Rufflecopter.
You're a liar. You're not. I refuse to write LOL because the chances are you're not LOLing.
No,
I'm
we're lolling.
So I write ha 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 ha.
Okay,
You know what's
that's
the
good.
best
If
is-
it was ha-ha-ha, it would be fine. But it's ha-ha. It's Nelson Muntz. It's
The best thing is when if you have Siri read your messages to you, if you've got your AirPods in and someone types in ha 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 ha, like it sounds so sarcastic, it's hilarious. It's like it's like oh boy.
Siri is tired of all of our shit.
Exactly. So to your point, Tasia, we can do like things like bold facing and italics and jumping
Strike through.
words jumping around and all this stuff we never thought we needed and probably don't. But heck, it's I think part of this is to try to differentiate iMessage from the other thing that they didn't really talk about, they mentioned in passing at the very end of the iOS segment, and it's 3 letters, and it's on the tip of Gray's tongue right now.
RCS?
RCS.
Yeah.
So Apple's finally going to be, playing
Putting
ball.
the arse in RCS.
Exactly. I mean, they never wanted to adopt Google's standard per se. They were working with the W3C consortium, or not the W3C, the carriers and whatever the mobile consortiums are for that, and making sure
what color the bubbles are going to be.
Sorry.
Did they see what color the bubbles are going to be?
Mauve? Purple. I'm not sure. Yeah. But Apple's in no rush. I think they were supposed to be playing ball like earlier this spring, and they kind of punted a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see RCS until late this fall or early next year.
Which is a dick move.
So we're going to have like the basic reactions, and maybe higher quality shared media like videos and images, and a lot of the other stuff, some of the basic stuff that we get in iMessage and stuff that people on Android messages get to each other. So there will be a little bit of connective tissue between those ecosystems. But I think what Apple's doing here with all this other nonsense that's kind of fun, it's like, okay, well, the RCS, you can do the basics, but you really want an iPhone, so you can do all this other dumb iPhone stuff with people. And it's like,
it feels like the candy machine sort of thing, where you put in $2 and you get like a little gotcha game thing. That's what this feels like. It is cheap candy, which I will devour. But
we're missing a big one though. We're missing a big one, which is send later. They're finally allowing us to schedule messages.
It's like emails. That's awesome.
I want send before.
Okay,
I said this. Right? I said this 6 hours ago.
Now, one kind of unexpected feature was a couple of years ago, I guess, was supported by the Apple 14 Pro, and the subsequent models like the 15 line, is the emergency satellite messaging. But now they're extending this to non-emergency purposes. So if you don't have any cell service, Apple says that iMessage will still be able to use satellites to send encrypted messages to other blue bubbles, or you can send, a bog standard text messages with Android phones. Now, Jerome, is someone who likes to go camping once in a while. I mean, how often are you out of range? And do you think once you're out of an iPhone 14 or newer, do you think you might be able to take advantage of that service? Is that something you've ever wanted? You're like, I'm out of range.
Yeah, I mean, I do hiking in areas that it's very easy to get lost. So it's nice to have some options like that. I don't have a 14 or newer device, so I guess I'm out of luck for now. But it's kind of encouraging that is available on these newer devices, because just so you have more options to avoid getting lost if they're in your, you're out there in the wilderness. So I like some of these things are a little bit like long overdue. Like I think you showed there's one, I hope I'm not jumping the gun by mentioning this, the tap to cache feature that they showed there. That I think is a long overdue function that has been available in Asian and apps that are common in Asia, the super apps, for years. So like that's awesome, and it's long overdue. Like we should have. Why hasn't PayPal or anyone done this? Like we need this, and it's really great that they finally done it
at the system level for sure. But
yeah,
it's probably going to be US only for this, because we still don't have Apple Card here in Canada. For example, we have Apple Pay, but not Apple Card or Apple Cash. So, Tasha, do you see the utility? I mean, Jerome mentions like we're way behind Asia in this regard. The US has some of these features. I mean, people have been Venmoing forever. We've been doing Interac e-transfers, which is fine, but not as simple and elegant from a direct device-to-device thing like this. What do you see as being the appetite in the US based on people's past experience? And do you think this Apple tap to pay your friend via your iPhone, do you think that's going to be a thing?
Yeah, I think it's huge if it works, because like right now the contact poster thing works sometimes. So
for sharing your contact info.
Yeah. So it really, you have to be a little finicky on how you like place your phone. Sometimes you have to toggle your Bluetooth off then back on, and then it'll work, and like it's just kind of a little cumbersome, but when it works it's like, oh, that's so much easier. So I think this is going to be maybe like that with a little bit of kinks. I love that it's done basically anonymously, so like you don't have to share like your contact information or email to send or receive money, basically, which is great.
My dealer will love it.
But yeah, I can see it working for sure.
The animation was pretty cool when they demonstrated the transfer of cash. It was almost like it was like, the Thanos snap to the money on one side, and it was kind of materializing on the other.
It looked like Johnny Mnemonic.
There we go. Is that our second Johnny Mnemonic reference?
Yes, it is.
Amazing. Oh boy. So there's some enhancements to the Apple Mail app, Apple Maps, and a bunch of other stuff. Tasia, anything else that were photos? You want to help me dig into photos with us, because they spent a fair bit of time on that.
I'll just give you the highlights. It's basically everything Google's doing and has done. No, so
Boom.
boom.
Summarize.
I mean, it's
You're
about
not
time.
wrong.
So so if you guys remember, Google announced at Google I/O, literally, what month are we in? I don't know, last month, an easier way to search with like natural language in the Google Photos app. You can do the same thing. Well, with iOS 18 in the fall, when it's publicly released, you will be able to do the same thing in the Photos app. So this will work in photos and videos. So basically, you could search for a specific person doing a certain activity like cartwheels or swimming in the pool or I don't know what, and it should theoretically bring you right to that scene in the video if it's a video, or find the photos that you're looking for in that more natural language type prompt, which is pretty cool.
This could be huge for content creators on OnlyFans.
Yes, good.
You know what's remarkable is I mean, there's not full on natural language queries, but just basic keyword searches in the Photos app on the iPhone as it is. And I just noticed this last fall. I type in collie and I see videos and photos of my dog. The name thing, of course, if you're tagging your folks, and then it auto recognizes your folks after that. But even things like I type in the word burger, and it's showing me burger pictures of text, from pictures I've taken in stores and whatnot. It's scanning all the text of your photos as well. So all that stuff is very subtly being added, and now they're just continuing to layer the functionality on, like what Google's doing as well. And this is just like one of these everyone's catching up to each other, overtaking each other, and a lot of it has to do with the release schedules for the operating systems and hardware and the like. But it's remarkable, no matter what ecosystem you're in, it's just getting much easier to access the tens of thousands of photos that we're taking and storing on our phones nowadays. And Tasia, you've been had the benefit of trying out a lot of the photo features on the Google phones and talking about their benefits, and then we a few months later we see them on Apple phones, and back and forth. So it is a pretty exciting time. What a time to be alive, right?
Yeah, but then there's another one too. So
Go.
Google has Magic Eraser. Now Apple has Clean Up. Not as fun as a name, but it does the same thing, where you'll be able to remove people or things or objects from the background of your photos without messing up the photo. It'll render in what it thinks that, stitch in the pixels and figure out what that background was. So I'm excited to test that this fall and see whose is better. Magic Eraser, which gets better with every OS update, or this Clean Up by Apple. So we'll see.
It doesn't
Looking
feel
forward
like
to your
that's been prejudged at all.
Looking forward to your head-to-head video on that one, Tasia.
I will eat my hat if Clean Up is better out the gate. I'll be like, holy
You won't have to. You
moly.
can just remove the hat from the video.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd
Where'd
like
it go?
I'd like to concur with what Tristan said, that far as back as probably Catalina or even earlier, you've been able to search photos on the Mac OS and find keyword photos, because I tested it. I was curious about how good it was able to find things yet, and then I was pleasantly surprised, as long as 2 years ago, that you could find certain things. So I think they've been slowly testing it
You can
and
actually
refining
check.
it.
You can check the metadata of your photographs to see which automated keywords it's already added to it. It shows pets and things.
Yeah, I noticed when I take a picture of my cats, all of a sudden sometimes it shows a little cat, a mini cat icon, as an overlay on the image too.
Yeah.
And, then Apple took a sort of interesting turn. Rather than talking specifically about an operating system, they went into this audio and home section where they talked up some of the features of being added to its AirPods series of devices and things like Apple Home and the like. One of the features that was kind of interesting was using AirPods with gestures and being able to like receive, like, accept a call by nodding your head or deny a call by shaking your head, and like I didn't realize there were accelerometers in certain models of AirPods. I assume it's like the AirPods Pros.
It's AirPods Pro.
All right, and AirPods Pro 2, or is it the original AirPods?
Well, they're just saying AirPods Pro.
Yeah.
It's in the original as well, and it's
Interesting.
also using triangulation based on location data for spatial audio.
Gotcha. But I wonder if it's the Pro Max supports that, like the big expensive boys. Like
You really got to nod though.
Yeah, because I mean, though, I don't think the Pro Max actually supports lossless, but the AirPods Pro 2 does. Like, there's some weird, because of the development cycles of those, and
Technology wasn't there.
meh. Tasia, was there anything else that stood out from you in that section? It was a lot. There's some like 21:9 aspect ratio for projectors when you're, I guess, sort of doing AirPlay and stuff like that. Some SharePlay enhancements with HomePods and enhancing dialogue, and when you're watching stuff on Apple TV. It's kind of a grab bag of.
Yeah, kind of some of the SharePlay stuff was kind of cool with the screen sharing now and being able to just like, I think they showed it was a long press and then you can annotate on your screen to easily show somebody like what you're talking about. And then you can easily just get control of someone else's devices if you just need to do it. And I was like, that right there. I'm buying one for me. I'm buying one for my mom. And it's just like, let me just drive. Thank you so much. Let's just do this. I'm just going to drive. So it's kind of cool, but it wasn't, I don't know. It's cool.
Two other things too that are kind of Apple TV specific. One was basically their answer to Amazon Prime Video's X-Ray, which is insights but this only applies to Apple Originals. So you're watching something on the screen, you can access information about the actors on screen and whatnot. There is, I think, and even like the music playing, like for the soundtrack and like the integration to the Apple Music. You remember 20 years ago when everyone was actually it's more like 25 years ago when people thought interactive TV was going to be a big deal. And the whole thing's like, oh yeah, you'll be watching X-Files in the late 90s and you want to know what kind of jacket Scully is wearing and you could shop for it at Pennington's or yeah. And that has never really become a thing yet. I mean, we've seen a little bit of that on like, maybe on some of the, like, I know that like online app shopping is huge on Asia, like in TikTok or on Douyin in China, Jerome. We see this a lot of like live streams with shopping and whatnot, but can you think of any apps where they actually can automatically detect or people can tag what's being displayed on screen
X-ray?
So that you can click and buy right away?
I think they simplified it in Asia with Douyin and those apps by just allowing the content creator to have a store that has all the items that you see in a video. And then maybe a link when they're showing multiple products, there's a link that you can click on that goes to their store. So it's a kind of a simplistic way but it's not quite like what you talked about, just because for the simplicity of the developing the software, I guess. And there was also quite a big push and interest on like scanning items you see when you're walking around and being able to get information and buy them, and that never really took off. Like those apps came out and they were mildly effective and then just seemed to die off and disappear. Like they never took off or went mainstream. So it seems that's not it's not a thing. We're not ready for that, I guess. I don't know. Maybe when AI is widespread.
Close, though, because if you think of like circle to search with Google, it'll basically pull up very, very like items. I've done it a lot. So it's only a matter of time before it's pulling up the exact shirt or pants or whatever you want. Just like when you watch programs on Amazon Prime and you pause it and they tell you like who's in the scene or like who the actors are in that moment.
X-ray, yeah.
It's like this is the next. It's almost there.
I'm surprised that Amazon hasn't been like including product links with the X-ray feature, right? Like they've got.
Sell it to me. Like, come on.
I will say a shout out to Taobao, which is for those of us out of China or Asia, is AliExpress. Like that's where you can get similar things. They have developed such a sophisticated AI for their store which is it's Taobao is really the Chinese Amazon, that it's beat anything we've seen here, and you can literally take a photo of anything you see, some obscure part from a device that is broken, and you will find it on that, and you'll be able to buy it. And it doesn't matter what. And once you do that, it'll start sending you suggestions of similar things you might like. Like it'll figure out what you want without you even be able to describe it in text.
Oh,
It's very sophisticated, and I'm sure that they're selling this tech to anyone who wants to buy. I don't know what their pricing is and how expensive it is, but I'm sure Amazon could buy it today if they wanted to, or could have bought it years ago. But it seems they haven't, and I don't know if it's because of the price or because it's a Chinese company and it's like they're worried.
That would be my guess.
But that tech is available. It's been available for 4 years, at least 4 years. I've been using it when I was over there. It's amazing, and it's just like I'm like, why isn't this pervasive? Like it's so good. But,
one last thing I just want to highlight, and this is close to my heart, is new Apple TV screensavers featuring Snoopy and Woodstock.
of all the announcements.
Because didn't they have some Apple Watch stuff with them, and now so they're really leaning into
Yes.
their Apple TV partnership there. Okay, Watch OS. Gray, anything that jumped to mind on the Watch OS side of things? It seemed like pretty incremental updates. They didn't seem to spend a ton of time.
Yeah, they're like
You can pause your rings. Oh, that was the one big thing. I got to take a day off because I feel like crap, so you don't lose any streaks.
Dude.
That's a nice one.
It's a huge one.
Yeah, I also want the ability to go back and tell my watch that its assessment of my ring performance is raw and utter bullhot.
And file a grievance.
Yeah,
I protest.
I want to be able to do this with ShakePay as well, because there are days where I've shook the damn thing and I don't get my Bitcoin. So it's just I want to be able to go back and be like,
Shake pay. Oh man.
I think being able to pause or like set rest days essentially is huge, because as somebody who takes 1 to 2 rest days a week, it pisses me off when I look at my watch and my rings aren't closed, and I'm like, well, I'm purposely resting my body. Like I'm not going to close all my rings on like a dog walk. So it's just like, I'm like, finally, don't ruin my streak. Because if I told you guys how often I'm like, flexibility as I'm like brushing my teeth and like getting ready for bed, like trying to just close a freaking ring, it's pathetic.
It's emotionally damaging.
It is.
And here's the thing: as someone with ADHD who regularly misplaces their watch, and the battery runs out, and it's somewhere in the house, and you don't know, and you miss a ring day because of that, and then you realize it was sitting under your laptop the entire time, thoughts of suicide are high. Pause my rings.
Add it to Find My Device and you'll be good. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the other key WatchOS features was a new app called Vitals that collects all your major health metrics. And I guess it's more of an executive summary of what we would often look at on the health app on our iPhones. So Vitals is like a little concise view on the watch itself, outside of just the basic, have you closed your rings kind of stuff, which is nice to gather all that in one place.
They did say
like
that
that it's
once
gonna
you
make
start up using
suggestions.
Vitals, it immediately uninstalls X. Handy.
Hey, it makes suggestions
Shortcut.
for you, so
Shortcut.
And when Siri's integrated with AI, then it'll tell you are 10 days away from a hospital visit, and you can like prepare for do something about your health conditions.
Just here pops in, I've got some bad news. You should probably sit down.
All right, moving on to iPad OS. 14 years later, we finally have a native calculator app. And when asked about it in the past, Craig Federighi, was a senior VP of software engineering, said that we didn't want to do a calculator app unless we could do something really special. Apparently, it didn't make the cut for when the iPad was first released, and they kind of like, well, all these other third-party calculator apps emerged in the meantime. So they're like, well, we don't want to just be an also-ran, so we'll wait until we've got something. So 14 years later, thanks to the power of AI and the magic of the Apple Pencil, they added some wild features in there, being able to write out equations and have them answered for you. And if you delete parts and rewrite them, it'll update the answers for you. there's
In
people
your handwriting, Tristan.
This is real from the alpha level
That's so
stuff.
crazy.
and it optimizes your handwriting as you go and tidies it up and all that stuff. It's like it's
Quietly judging you.
this is like there's been so much buzz about this freaking calculator app online. Like I don't know.
This is like, by the way, found as part of the Notes app. Just so everybody knows, like while it's powered by calculator, if you just open the calculator app on iPad, I do not believe you're going to get to the math notes is what this feature
They
is
hate
called.
calculator.
It's just wild. Like, why not just put it in the calculator? But
Somebody
I
at
guess
Apple
because
has a
it's
grudge.
gotta live where like in the app that keeps stuff stored, because like your math notes will be stored and you can go
They don't have
back and
some sort
refer
of
to an
iCloud
old.
that can connect these things?
I know, you can go back and refer to old mathematical equations and change them, and it does graphs. You guys, are you freaking
Texas
kidding?
Instruments just had a collective heart attack. Their vitals apps all just went off, right?
They're like,
It's
we
your
have no way to
scientific
even
calculator.
get close to this.
Like
The TI-83
so
and the
far,
TI-84 are done.
no. So far, Apple's like, I'm coming for all payment providers. So like Zelle,
Yeah.
Venmo, we're coming for you, the makers of the scientific calculator. Like they're
gonna
just like,
Sherlock
let's
all the
go.
things.
Yeah.
Yes, we made you wait 14 years, but look.
Worth it.
Look what we have wrought.
So it's not just math notes, as Tasia alludes to. The Notes app itself, which is becoming increasingly powerful year after year, is now using the same handwriting additions for their smart script feature. So again, you write your notes in your own handwriting, and it will continue to tidy them up for you. You can OCR them, of course, as well. But for those folks who like to take notes and leave them in your own handwriting, it's just gonna tidy them up for you. So
Are we worried about a Notes versus Siri civil war?
oh yeah. We'll just wait until we get into the AI stuff, and there we go. One last operating system to talk about: macOS Sequoia.
Those
So
vowels.
We've moved to trees.
yeah,
No,
six-
that's how long has it been?
I had heard Redwood is one potential name, but we still haven't done Mammoth, which was another name that's been rumored for a while. But maybe they're waiting for a giant macOS update for that. But
Copeland
Sequoia
too,
and
or
some
bust.
nice imagery there. But one of the big features of Sequoia was enhancements to continuity, and this broke my brain a little bit, but it's super cool. Just like we've been able to, easily integrate our various devices in one way or another by copying and pasting very seamlessly between our Mac or our iPad or our iPhone, or have an iPad over to the side, with a sidecar and use it as an extra monitor and all these things. Now we can basically have our iPhone appear on our Mac screen via iPhone mirroring, even if we don't. Gray, maybe this is for you. Even if you don't know where your iPhone is in your house, you can still access it.
Here's what I want to do.
From your Mac.
I want to be able to fire up my iPhone and then turn on the cameras and see where my phone is.
There you go.
Then I don't have to do this.
Well, you can use your phone as a camera
Yeah.
for the computer now.
Right?
Oh yeah, they
that.
introduced that a year or two ago. Yeah, so they've just integrated. I mean, that's the Apple secret sauce, right? Tying all of these things together, and that's
We thought distractions were bad before. Now I'm just like, oop,
Yeah.
on my iPhone, even though I'm on my Mac.
exactly.
Doo-doo-doo.
I'm gonna scroll Instagram on my iPhone from my Mac. It's like,
If you haven't been drinking the Kool-Aid now, you will be.
We're so screwed.
with new passwords app. This is something this is a hack that people have been able to do for a little while. I can't remember how I did it. I think it was maybe through a shortcut or something like that, where normally there's some keychain functionality. If you store all your passwords in your keychain on your Mac, instead of going to 1Password or LastPass or something like that, there's everything except for secure notes would sync to the passwords portion in the settings on your iPhone, which is pretty handy. But there was a hack where you could actually make your own little keychain app and put it on your iPhone screen if you wanted to access that directly. Of course, I've got it buried in a subfolder, so I don't even bother with that. But a lot of people don't realize that all the passwords that are in your keychain on your other devices, or you can usually access from your iPad and iPhone as well. But Apple's kind of really highlighting that functionality with a dedicated passwords app now, which is probably a good thing. It doesn't sound like that Notes is going to be a part of that though, and that you can do secure notes in the Notes app, but that's different from secure notes in the Keychain Access app on the Mac. So, but it's progress. I guess. Who here uses a third-party passwords app and may consider going first-party with Apple? What do you use, Jerome?
mSecure.
mSecure. What's your password? Your master password?
I don't know. I use Face ID.
Oh,
Those
gotcha.
slick. Those.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was talking to someone recently that had some problem with LastPass. Was that you? Yeah.
Not LastPass, but Dashlane.
Oh, Dashlane. That's what it was.
Shady
People still use
shite.
Dashlane.
Shady
People still use
shite.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
because
happened-
I was using the free version. Of course I was.
Right. Oh, Miss Free.
Gotcha.
Shady.
Very quickly,
They got me.
tell Gray and Jerome and anyone who happens to be paying attention what happened with Dashlane, because that's germane to anyone using third-party apps, especially large that a lot of functionalities built into your OS.
Well, I use it on my Mac. I use it throughout Chrome, like anything I need to sign into, basically.
Right.
And you get so many passwords for free, and then they want you to upgrade. So I've been at like max capacity for a while, and it's fine because I have everything I need, and that's kosher. But like, I went to log in to something the other day that is already there and included it, and they have lowered the threshold for how many free passwords you're allowed to have. So if I want to log into
Speaking
the
of Red
accounts
Bull.
now, they want me to upgrade. So I can still go into my Dashlane and see all of everything I have and like see all my passwords. So like I could do it manually that way instead of it auto logging me in, which is like very annoying. But they want you to delete passwords now to get down to the threshold or upgrade. And I'm like, screw you. So I'm kind of trying to figure out another solution now. But
So this is very timely for you then,
This is
Tasia. I had a
very
similar
timely.
situation with mSecure where they came out with a completely new app that you had to pay for, and they said the old one will eventually be removed,
Oh, perfect.
and if you want to back up everything to the cloud or to some device, then you need to have the new app. They haven't removed the old one after many years, so that's nice, but you kind of need to use the new paid one to do things that you want to do sort of in a similar way. So Apple's probably saving a lot of people's nightmares or headaches by having this.
Yeah, and just Sherlocking all those third-party apps over time. Like I've been a big proponent for years and years and years now. Whenever there's a first-party solution, even if it's not as robust as you would want, like it's generally going to get more robust. Notes being a key part of that. Like I moved off of a third-party thing to Notes as soon as I could, especially when they did the cloud syncing part of that made it much more functional. Moving on very quickly, Gray, this is one of your specialties, Apple and gaming. They had a couple of little updates there with some demos of old software. What's going on with Control and Prince of Persia and the Lost the Crown and Assassin's Creed? Like this is all ray tracing. Who cares about ray tracing?
What can I say? The M series processors are good enough to run this stuff. Translating this stuff over and running it on mac-iron is doable. We're in the last days of Macs being crap for gaming. Enjoy them.
So it's just a question of convincing all the AAA title developers to start porting their games to Mac OS on Apple Silicon using Metal APIs as opposed to like the ones that everyone else uses on Windows. That's the big problem, right? The lack of cross-platform graphics, because everyone's using NVIDIA and Apple's got Apple Silicon now. I mean, they're not even using AMD anymore. Do you think people are ever going to take Apple seriously on
They already are. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is out on Mac OS.
Day and date?
No, it came out later. But this is what I'm saying is they're now getting down to a button click to get these to run on Mac as opposed to having to rewrite the software. Here's the thing. It's not really going to matter because Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo Sony especially, they're putting titles on PC for the first iteration of a title and then looking to move people over to console. It really is not going to... The war isn't between Mac and PC for gaming. The war is between PC and console for gaming and for the soul of gaming. And it's between corporate and indie. And corporate's winning. So fun soon will be a microtransaction.
Well,
I'm really grim this week. I don't know. I think I'm hungry.
Okay, if they do this, will it also work on the Apple Arcade? That's my question. Like
Yes.
those games. So
if
that's,
they are included there, like if Apple's going to pay them to be included as part of the Apple Arcade subscription. Right?
But here's
and the
the thing.
idea is that you
An
build
iPad-
once and you deploy everywhere, like iPhone, iPad, Mac, right, with all the common frameworks. That's the dream, right?
3 OSs,
An
basically.
$800 iPad from 2 years ago with an M series processor in it runs Baldur's Gate extremely well that you can AirPlay to your TV with a Bluetooth controller.
And just if they ever put an M series processor in an Apple TV,
Or an Apple Watch.
exactly, we can put it in an iPod-looking case.
Right.
Okay.
Tasia, what was that about saying why we did? How did that go?
What?
Why?
You didn't ask as to whether you should. Just asked
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's get to the highlight of the day, which was AI.
I ran
in
a
this
Steam
case,
10 minutes ago.
AI,
Apple
also known as
intelligence.
Classic Apple coming through. Rebranding AI as we know it.
in the tradition of the iPhone and iMac and all.
It's
that.
not pronounced AI though. It's pronounced I.
Aye. All right, Tasia.
Missed
There's
that part of
a
it.
word that Apple said over and over and over again in the AI. Even before they said the words AI, trying to work build on that trust that they've developed. We saw it last month was Microsoft Build, and one of the features there, Microsoft Recall, where it basically records what you're doing all day, every day on your AI Copilot Windows PC that people are starting to tout. But there's huge backlash because people don't trust Microsoft. But Apple's been leaning into privacy for years and years and years. Not doing things like putting backdoors into operating systems, even when law enforcement wants it and whatnot. They do the absolute bare minimum to cooperate with governments, usually when under, with warrants and stuff like that, like most law-abiding companies do. But they would not go above and beyond that kind of stuff. So they've end-to-end encryption on iMessage forever, encryption in iCloud, et cetera, et cetera. So the P word, privacy. Can you take us through Apple Intelligence, some of the key features, and what is the importance of privacy when it comes to AI features on Apple devices?
Well, basically, a lot of what they were touting were, there's some changes to your notifications, which we can talk about in a little bit, I guess. But essentially, summarize in all of the things. So like your mail, your notes app, your pages, things like this. So privacy becomes pretty important when you're talking about specific apps and you're worried about who's having access to what information and what it's summarizing, and if there's sensitive content perhaps in your mail messages and you want it to prioritize those things to the top maybe, but like who's accessing that information, how does it know that that's important to you? There's a lot of questions I have. Yeah, but basically that was kind of what I took away from them, are things like writing tools as well that are going to be essentially system wide, like rewriting, proofreading, again, summarizing text pretty much everywhere. So it's going to be quite important, I feel like, for them to highlight that, because when we have this stuff essentially on device now, people want to know, well, who's got access to my data and who's seeing all of this sensitive information, if you will. But I think it's going to be real funny when people start getting up in arms about this stuff, because we've been saying it for how long? Like, you walk around with a tiny computer in your pocket, the government and everybody knows everything about you anyway. So you guys know me, I'm all in. Take my data. I have nothing to hide.
Actually, we need to talk to you about that.
We've been looking through your stuff, Tasia, and we have concerns.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
It has to do with an Alexa toothbrush.
And Elmo, of all things.
The battery just died, and I don't know why. I like to brush my teeth a lot. Okay? I will not be judged.
Hashtag Black Control. Well, that's our show for the week.
So we've got Apple adding generative AI in terms of doing these Gen AI emoji kind of things, which are basically kind of stickers, and if you want to do caricatures of yourself or friends,
Or friends, which is creepy.
and whatnot. We got Siri getting smarter finally. How long have we been asking for Siri to get smarter? Being able
we're
to maintain
so overdue.
being able to maintain
believe it when I
context
see
in
it.
the middle of a conversation, being able to access system features. A lot of this stuff is being hooked into app intents, which Apple's been pushing for a while and encouraging developers to include as well. So hopefully we'll start seeing third-party support, but Apple's dogfooding this stuff and making sure that you can do as much as humanly possible through Siri on your phone. Like the idea is that the ideal is like you'd be able to say, hey, turn on dark mode, or hey, how do I do blah blah in maps, or or just like you're just texting with someone and you just say, hey, just add this to my calendar. Like with just multi-step processes, just being able to trigger them with your voice and not having to set up arcane macros using Apple shortcuts, as powerful as that is. It's like having the benefit of these workflows available to regular folks. So all these other things when it comes to like making emoji and doing stuff with updating your photos and whatnot is cool, but for me it's just like actually getting to the AI agent side of things, which I think is going to be really powerful. And they've kind of rebranding Siri visually, at least. Instead of a little icon on the bottom that it pops up and kind of swirls around, it goes around the entire edge of the screen, which kind of, it's like everything is AI now. They've given it a new logo. They've kept the same name, for better or for worse. We'll see how that goes. And then so much of this is being done on device for privacy reasons. But then, Tasia, they announced a partnership.
They did. And it wasn't with Google. And I was crushed. They're partnering with Chat GPT.
OpenAI.
Y'all.
Wait, wasn't Microsoft partnering with ChatGPT? What's going on?
Apparently, Satya Nadella had a little chat with Tim Cook saying, "What's up, bro?"
Here's $150 million to invest in your failing.
Yeah. Or maybe
I thought we had a deal.
Or maybe it was the Sam Altman. Anyhow, I could see why not. They, right out of the gate, they're not going with Google, given that this is like Google Gemini is like powering all the Android devices and Chromebooks and all that sort of stuff. But Apple did say that they plan to make other models available, perhaps in a follow-up chat, including Google, and then you can things like Lambda. I can never remember. Llama, it was Llama is the Meta one, Meta AI, and then of course there's Anthropic, Claude, and Mistral's models and all that kind of stuff. So the idea is that you could choose whichever large language models you wanted to for anything that required knowledge of the general world. So like Apple hasn't done their own LLM in a big way, like a world spanning, let's hoover up the web kind of way, just in a small like stuff that can be helpful for you on your own device. Now, they're claiming that your personal information when necessary to go to the cloud, is going to be on Apple servers powered by Apple Silicon, privacy protected. And then if they need to interface with Chat GPT and OpenAI, your privacy is going to be protected as much as possible, aside from, of course, what you actually include in the prompts. Tasia, what concerns do you have, if any, about that relationship, whether it be ChatGPT or any of the other models? How well do you think Apple's going to be able to protect your privacy?
I mean...
Or do you even care?
Yeah, I know, right? I think you should take the same stance that you always take with any of these things. So we talked about this when ChatGPT first came out, which was, don't be prompting stuff you wouldn't want your grandmother to read or know. Don't be a psychopath on the internet, and I think you'll be fine.
I'm out.
Just remember, you're teaching AI things.
Yeah, you're exactly. It's a much nicer way of putting it. Yes.
And then you got the AIs in a corner going, "I've seen too much."
I've got 3,000 boyfriends now. I'm sorry.
People are terrible. Humans are terrible. We must destroy.
Like I said, my influence right now is I'm just trying to teach all of my AI to be Lewis Black. So I'll be angry for the next couple of episodes. Wish me luck.
No, but Tasia, do any of us really care as long as Siri gets smart?
No, and that's my one thing
worse.
is like, if this actually works, because I noticed a lot of the language and a lot of the examples they were giving, and I'm questioning how much smarter she's actually getting, because a lot of their language was like, oh, she'll tell you like how to do certain things in your apps, and I'm like, I could freaking Google that. I don't need her to tell me how to do something in the app. I want her to do the thing in the app.
Exactly.
I think we'll get there. Yeah.
So that's the question. I was like questioning the language a little bit. And then a lot of the examples they were showing were the same mundane type things, just zhuzhed up with, like Tristan mentioned, the pretty colored bezel of light around your screen now. And it's like, okay, but can she do the thing?
Yeah,
I don't care if she can understand me if I say something wrong and want to do it, but like, are you just going to tell me the weather and the time? You know what I mean? Or like, are you actually going to be helpful now? So it's, as we know, with any of these companies, when anytime they do demos, like, I'm really curious to see how this is actually going to work for us IRL, because if I'm going to ask her to pull something from my photos or somebody's flight info, or she better work, because or else it's the same thing in a prettier box and they've put what? Lipstick on a pig.
It seems like it could be
I
a
searched the web for
slow.
lipstick on a pig.
I said it. That's
Could
what
be-
they're
it could
changing
be
the
a
name
s-
from Siri to lipstick on a pig.
Could be a slow rollout. Like it could be a slowly.
Yeah.
That's
totally.
exactly. Yeah, and apparently the
It has been a slow rollout.
it's only been
Yeah.
what, 14 years?
It's
Or
only
13
been.
years since
We've
they're-
waited how long for a calculator app on iPad? We
exactly.
can be patient.
Well, apparently the enhanced Siri is not in the first developer betas of the iOS 18. So this is something that's probably going to end up coming out later in the fall, after with a dot release or dot update for iOS, and then I imagine it'll make its way to the other platforms of iPadOS probably pretty quickly, and then of course macOS Sequoia and Apple TV and that sort of stuff. But having that, so they're really pumping up the device knowledge, like what you can do with your devices, which I think will be helpful. You think about how many features these devices have that people of maybe like who aren't super tech savvy or tech interested, or our parents or grandparents' generations, like if they could just ask it to do something, like what was that? One of the examples I gave, like what was that movie that we talked about? And like maybe you had a previous question. It's like, what was that movie that Gray and I talked about? Or what was that song Jerome mentioned to me the other day? Like, because everything is connected with your Apple ID. Now they're going to be called Apple accounts, by the way, a little rebranding there. But everything is all connected together. That's when we should start enjoying the benefits. Kind of like in the Google ecosystem. Like if you're on Gmail, like there's so many so much is at your fingertips thanks to Google basically indexing all your email for you. So we'll start to see those sorts of benefits too for those people who are all in on the Apple ecosystem. Like, oh yeah, when's my mom's flight getting in? Like.
Yeah.
Be able to ask questions as general as that, and it knowing who your mom is because you've mentioned it to it or you've tagged in your contacts database appropriately in the past. And I'm a stickler for metadata myself, but you can just say and it'll ask you who your mom is, and then you tell it, and then it remembers. But then it'll look at your emails or your text messages and whatnot, and put that all together for you. But like to your point, if it's just kind of as dumb as it's ever been, but with an AI lipstick on it, people aren't going to want it. So I think the slow roll is probably is a good idea to they test as much as possible. There's going to be eventually get into the betas, so that when it gets into the hands of the public, that it's not just people like sending out memes about Siri's dumb answers, right? Because then we will have actually backtracked instead of made progress. So.
Well, something where
Fingers
I think
crossed.
is what's going to be nice is being able to go between verbally asking and typing. So now you can do it. You'll be able to do both on iOS 18, which is kind of nice to like go back and forth in your same queries with Siri like that. Because in public, it's like, I always just I don't want people looking at me like, hey Siri, like, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't want, so now you'll be able to message with her instead.
Which you've been able to do on the Mac for a while, actually.
Yeah,
This is a feature that actually needs to come to regular conversations. Right, where you're talking to someone, but you can also text them at the same time.
If only they could invent a way to do that.
But like, here's the thing: I don't want to go back and forth between messages and the phone. I want in the call to be able.
Oh, I thought you meant with someone you're like sitting with. Don't people do that all the time anyway?
Sit with people.
Right.
Aren't you guys still socially isolating?
Anyone?
Is the war with Japan over? Oh God!
I thought we won the war. Any last think highlights that anyone wants to call out before we move on from the WWDC news, whether it's OS updates, AI enhancements, what have you?
What is the food name for this? If this was an Android update, what would this be?
Pork chop?
Tapioca.
Pork chop.
All right. Well, let's fingers crossed that some of the stuff's going to get into the first releases that we see in the fall of all these operating systems. Some of them are going to be 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. When do they do the new emoji? It's usually in the spring, late winter, early spring. That's
new emoji season.
0.3, 0.4. Yeah. All right, so let's just speed run through some of these other things. Gray, Marvel's What If, an immersive story for Apple Vision Pro, was announced a couple of weeks ago, and it came with a trailer. Again, they're really slow rolling the immersive content on the Apple Vision Pro, which, I mean, they're not in a rush. Apparently, word is this is going to be the same model device for a couple of years at least. I've heard this could take us to 2027 possibly. So it's just the media creation and the app development and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on the significance of this, this experience, this immersive experience from Marvel, and what it means for the Apple Vision Pro?
It's so impactful that it may bring the Vision Pro back from the dead. So this studio should now be called Marvel Reanimation.
All right, so that is your thoughts on that. So we will hopefully we'll see more immersive content. I think there's a lot of potential for sports. It's easier to do digital content than real world because of like all the crazy cameras required and whatnot. So I think
if you want immersive content, read a book in the bath.
There you go. Or
Marvel needs help too. I mean, they're having trouble.
Oh boy, yeah, do they?
I'm just picturing Marvel just sitting on the corner going, God,
if you want to have a bath, you need a calming computer you can take in the bath with you.
That you won't get to buy.
All right, a couple of other quickies that we didn't get a chance to talk about in the last month. Hell is frozen over, and Atari has acquired Intellivision. What? It's like the early 80s all over again. This is the news that Tasia's here for. This is Atari in quotes because the Atari brand is changed hands so many times over the years. But formerly bitter rivals, Atari and Intellivision from the early 80s, they've come together as one. Now, there was something called the Intellivision Amico, which is another piece of hardware under the Intellivision brand. That is not part of this deal. Who knows if that device is ever going to come out, unfortunately. But this is kind of weird in a way. But if it helps breathe new life into the Intellivision games and seeing them get enhanced or available on other platforms or just preserved, if nothing else, sure, cool, I guess. But in other retro gaming news, we've got another take on the Game Boy, because Palmer Luckey needed something to do on the side. He's got Anduril going for weapons manufacturing and drones and stuff like that. But he's also apparently going back to his roots as a Game Boy modder kind of nerd. And this is a rival to the Analog Pocket. Takes Game Boy cartridges, and apparently it's got an amazing screen, lots of lovely colors. So anyone wants an updated kind of Game Boy in their life, that's there for you. And again, Tasia, I know this is what you are here for.
You can make use of all your old cartridges now.
Exactly.
I should have saved my Game Boy.
Right?
Done.
Okay, let's move on to our momentous picks, starting with you, Tasia.
Okay, guys, have any of you watched Conan O'Brien Must Go? It's on Max here in the States. I don't know if maybe it's Crave in Canada.
It'll probably be Crave,
I don't really know. Maybe somewhere just online in Canada, but I love Conan so much. I don't know if you guys listen to his podcast, Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. And then he started Conan O'Brien Needs a Fan, which was basically like fans call in and did video calls on the podcast. So what he did was he realized like these fans are calling in from all over the world. So he decided a lot of times fans would say to him, if you're ever in, and then they'd say wherever they were, you know what I mean? Stop by, and so he thought, I should do that. So it's this really fun, I want you guys to picture classic retro Conan bits, commitment to the bit, commitment to the bit, every single bit, and sitting in the awkwardness, sitting in the uncomfortable, and just going for it every time. It's so funny. The one still you just showed was from episode 2, which Brett and I cried laughing multiple times during episode 2. it was it's nonsense, but it's also heartwarming and wonderful and so Conan. So I strongly recommend Conan O'Brien must go. Go watch him, visit his fans.
This is perfect because I just saw the series finale for Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he is hilarious in that. Have you seen that?
No, so we're like catching up. So
Oh my gosh,
but
that made
he's
it
just-
made me hungry for more Conan, and then this is there now. This is here, perfect.
Yes, enjoy. It's so good. There's only like a few episodes. We binged them all. I think there's like 6 or 7, and we were like, oh no, what? Wait, what? We're like, there weren't enough. I don't even think there were 7. I can't remember now, but because we went through them pretty quick. But so good, so good.
It makes me nostalgic for the days when I had just moved back from Victoria to Vancouver and had a big old former Board of Education black and white television that I had, and I watched Conan O'Brien's very first episodes when he took over from Letterman on NBC,
Wow.
and they were so weird and so awkward, and it was always like, is he going to even last a season, right? But NBC stuck by him, and he's delightful. The only thing I could say about it, he could probably stand to get a bit more sunshine. That is
That's part of his
that's
look.
a pale man. He's like translucent.
We're gathered here today to remember Conan O'Brien, who burst into flames after spending too much time in the sun.
Exactly. Jerome, your momentous pick this week, a little bit of hardware.
Yeah, I have to full disclosure, I haven't used these yet, but I have them. I have acquired a TP-Link device, which is now branded as Casa, Spanish for home, no coincidence. And I because I've heard that they're HomeKit compatible. They're not officially HomeKit devices, but it's a light switch. And what you do is you replace your light switch with this, and then you have Wi-Fi control. And at least with their app, if the HomeKit doesn't work, but there is a way to get HomeKit to be able to control them. And so what I like about this is if you have a switch like I do 3 floors below where you actually want to use it, you can install one of these, and then you can use an app to control it, and then set a timer even on when you want it to turn on and off and things like that. So I'm excited about playing with these things, and seeing how well HomeKit can work with them, which is, in case anyone doesn't know, HomeKit is the Apple device controllers for Wi-Fi devices and plugs and such electronic devices. So it, the latest version apparently can work with HomeKit of these, which is the H300, I think. So yeah, just something I'm going to play with and let you know how it goes.
Be careful, it's addictive, and the next thing you know, you're going to want like plugs and switches all over the place, and you can set up little routines. And there's we have some of the Wemo devices, and you can set an away mode, and when you're away, it'll like turn lights on and off in your house like at random times to make it look like people are home and whatnot. We shout things at the HomePods, and it'll turn lights on and off depending on what we're about to do. If we're going to watch TV or something, we say watch TV upstairs, and it'll turn on the front lights by the TV. It'll turn off the rear lights so we don't get glare. Just little things like that. We've got stuff with the back deck lights. I'm putting switches everywhere.
It's so much better than a clapper.
Exactly. We have a clapper. Good stuff. Gray, what's your momentous pick this week?
Grass.
All right, can you elucidate?
Go ahead and touch it.
Touching grass?
Go ahead and touch it.
All right.
We've had lots of
now that the
AI
weather's better,
things.
it's like, we gotta get outside. We've been inside for too long.
There's a darkening of the melanin in my skin. It's
You've been
terrifying.
outside.
It got through SPF 60.
Amazing.
And the end times are among us. Go enjoy them.
All right. My grass. So grass. There you go. You can find grass seed at Home Depot and Canadian Tire. You can
Also, if you have a cat, get some cat grass. You can grow that with a little bit of water and gravel. Absolutely fantastic. Don't hurt yourself.
Sort of on theme for this week, my momentous pick this week is a website called 84-24.org, 84 to 24. And it is a remarkable website designed by a fellow who went on, created a project to acquire an original Macintosh 128 from 1984, and it follows his. It has a little bit of history about the Mac, and then his search for an original Mac 128K, and then his process of restoring the Mac, which came with the Sad Mac logo on boot, and having to troubleshoot and get it fixed. Very cool, interactive, dynamic website. Takes you through the whole story, including things like repairing components, and even eventually getting to retrobrighting the yellowed case and the like. So just tie into a little our Apple WWDC news. I thought it might be appropriate for anyone who wants to have a little trip down memory lane and what it's like to restore something from your past, or something you never wanted to, you never had but always wanted as well. So that's 84-24.org.
It's amazing he got it to boot. Never mind, made it into a fish tank or something.
Exactly. Yeah, I've got a Mac Plus fish tank. All right. Now we get to our momentous projects. Jerome, what little project have you been working on lately?
Well, something that amazingly and wonderfully has been released in the theater. So, it's in here in the local theaters even. So it's a true story about a Chinese doctor from China who studied in America and partnered with an American doctor to restore sight for people born with blindness or with a specific kind of blindness, pioneering medical technology to be able to do that. And I did a very small part in this, which is the Chinese version of the film that you might watch with subtitles or dubbed on the various streaming platforms when it comes out. But in the current version in theaters here, of course, is the English one. But so we worked on the Chinese version of this film, and it's out in the theaters now. I don't know if it's still out, but it was released end of May. So, and it's a interesting true story with our own Canadian actor,
Terry Chen.
And I was thinking of the American doctor character,
Greg Kinnear.
which is Greg Kinnear. Yes, yeah. So that's.
Have you actually had a chance to watch the whole movie?
Well, in my work, I watch most of it, but in the editing,
over and over and over.
But like certain parts over and over more than others. But yeah, basically, I have seen it, and it's pretty well done. It covers some interesting drama with the lead actor, the lead character, the Chinese character in China during the Cultural Revolution, and some challenges that he faced that motivated him on his journey to be a doctor who could do something meaningful for people's lives. And so it's got that, and that may mean that their objective of getting it released in China may be difficult, I think, but that's what they wanted to do. And so it's an interesting story that it starts in China and then goes to America, and then the technology that they developed, these doctors, is being used today to help people with certain kinds of sight issues. So yeah, it's a nicely done.
And what was the nature of the work that your team did on it?
We did the Chinese dub, so we had to we cast and recorded and edited the Chinese actors for the Chinese version of the film.
Very cool. All right.
Yeah.
Tasia, what is your project this week?
It's me. So hello, hi. So I partnered with SaneBox, which is like an AI email organizer tool. And so I did a little video on how I happened to clean up my Gmail with SaneBox. And I have a $25 discount code link in the description of that YouTube video. So if anybody's curious to use it, that's where they can find more info on it. And I go through like some of my favorite features and how it's helped me clean up one of my emails that I use.
Is the coupon code Control-A delete?
Yes.
And so what is SaneBox? What's the one sentence description what SaneBox is?
They're like an AI email organizer.
Better than you at email is the.
Pretty much.
I got how many? many unread do I have at the moment? I don't have it open. Thousands. All right.
That's
speaking of Tasia Custodi.
That's me again.
Yes.
Multipass.
We've got 3 episodes of AI Name the Show that have happened since we last convened for Momentous Live. One on multimodal AI, another on AI super alignment, and last week on AI slop. So you can.
It's finally a reference I get, guys. I gotta tell you.
Sloppy Joe. So you can find more about us at www.ainamethisshow.com, Tasia's work at www.tasiacustodi.com, and Jerome, your work at www.prosoul.com. Gray, you got any links to promote for us? How's Web.today doing?
It's doing great. The links that I'm going to promote, though, are some beautiful sausages that I picked up from the farmer's market that I'm about to go cook because I am starving.
Delightful. Well, you can find out about the rest of us here at www.momentous.tv. And thank you, Jerome, for joining us this week. It's always great to have you, and good to have Tasia and Gray back together. Will, we miss you. Hopefully,
we miss you, Will.
We'll join you next time. I think our next episode will probably be around a month for the next Samsung Unpacked event, which will be happening in July. So we're focusing more on special events nowadays, and we'll see how that goes. But until then, we hope your week and your month are truly momentous.